You are listening to Lord of the Rings. Chapter 14. The Council of Elrond. The next day, Frodo rose early, feeling refreshed and strong. He walked along the high terrace above the loud-flowing Bruinen and watched the pale, cold sun rise beyond the far mountains. Its slanting light gleamed through a mist of silver. The haze above the golden leaves was glimmering and slender. Shining spiderwebs trembled on every bush. Sam followed him, silent, sniffing the air, sometimes glancing with wonder at the grandeur of the mountains of the east. Snow lay white upon their peaks. On a seat of stone beside a turning of the path, they came upon Gandalf and Bilbo, deep in talk. "Hello, good morning," said Bilbo. "Are you ready for the great council?" "I am ready for anything," said Frodo. "But I should like best today to go for a walk and explore the valley. I want to go up into those pine woods over there." He pointed northward on the Rivendell side. "You will have a chance later," said Gandalf. "But we have not yet settled on any plan. There is much to hear and to decide today." Suddenly, while they were speaking, a great bell rang out. "That is the signal for the Council of Elrond," said Gandalf. "Come along. You are both expected." Frodo and Bilbo quickly followed the wizard back along the winding path towards the house. Behind them, uninvited and forgotten for the moment, came Sam, trotting after. Gandalf led them back to the porch where Frodo had seen his friends the previous evening. The clear, bright light of an autumn morning was filling the valley. The sound of bubbling water rose from the running river. Birds were singing, and a sense of peace lay upon the vale. To Frodo, his perilous flight and the rumour of the growing evil in the world outside seemed now only a disturbing dream. Yet every face that turned to greet them as they entered was grave. Elrond was there, and many others sat silently beside him. Frodo saw Glorfindel and Glóin, and in a corner sat the Strider alone, clad once more in his old travel-worn garments. Elrond seated Frodo beside him and introduced him to all present, saying, "Here, my friend, is a hobbit, Frodo, son of Drogo. Few have ever come hither through greater peril or with a more urgent purpose." Then he pointed out and named those whom Frodo had not yet met. A young dwarf sat beside Glóin, his son Gimli. Beside Glorfindel were many councillors of Elrond's household, chief among them Erestor, and with him was Galdor, an elf from the Grey Havens, sent by Círdan the shipwright. There was also a strange elf, clad in green and brown, Legolas, messenger of his father Thranduil, king of the elves of northern Mirkwood, and seated somewhat apart was a tall man with a fair and noble face, dark hair, and grey eyes, proud and stern in bearing. He was cloaked and booted as if he had ridden far, and though his garments were rich and fur-lined, they were stained with long travel. On a silver collar at his throat was set a single white stone, and his dark hair fell loose upon his shoulders. Upon his lap lay a great silver horn, bound to his belt with a chain. He gazed at Frodo and Bilbo in sudden wonder. "This," said Elrond, turning to Gandalf, "is Boromir, a man of the south. He came in the grey morning seeking counsel. I have asked him to be present, for his questions shall be answered here. Not all that was spoken and debated in the Council of Elrond need be told now. Much was said of the deeds in the world outside, especially in the south, and in the wide lands east of the mountains. Frodo had heard many rumours of these things before, but the tale of Glóin was new to him, and as the dwarf spoke, he listened intently. It seemed that great works were in trouble in the heart of the dwarves' realm under the lonely mountain. "Many years ago," Glóin said, "a shadow of unease fell upon our people. At first, we did not perceive whence it came. Strange whispers began to pass. It was said that we were shut in too narrow a place, and that there were greater wealths and glories to be found in a wider world. Some spoke of Moria, the mighty works of our fathers that in our tongue we call Khazad-dûm, and they said that now at last we had the power and numbers to return. Glowin sighed.
Moria, Moria.
Wonder of the northern world. Deep we delved there, and woke an evil of which we do not speak. Its vast halls have long been empty since the children of Durin fled, yet we still dream of it with longing, though with dread, for no dwarf has dared pass the doors of Khazad-dûm for many generations, save Thror, and he perished. But, at last, Balin listened to these whispers, and resolved to go. And though Dain was loath to let him depart, he took with him Ori and Oin, and many of our folk, and they went away south. This was nearly 30 years ago. For a while we had tidings from them, and they were good. Messages came telling that they had entered Moria and begun great works there. But then silence fell, and no word has come from Moria since. Then about a year ago, a messenger came to Dain, but not from Moria. From Mordor, a rider in the dark called at his gate. He said that the great Lord Sauron desired friendship with our people. He would restore to them the rings of power as of old. And he inquired urgently about hobbits, what kind of creatures they were, and where they dwelt. For Sauron knows, he said, that you once knew of such a one. We were bewildered and gave no answer. Then his voice dropped, and he spoke very sweetly. Sauron only asks this as a small token of your friendship, he said, that you should seek this thief, so he called him, and take from him, whether he will or no, a little ring, the least of trinkets that once he stole. It is but a trifle that Sauron fancies, and a matter of goodwill on your part. Seek it, and the 3 rings that the dwarves of old possessed shall be restored to you, and the realm of Moria shall be yours forever. Only find out if the thief still lives and where he is to be found, and you shall have rich reward and everlasting friendship with the Lord. Refuse, and things will not go so well. Will you not say no? Then suddenly his breath hissed like a serpent's, and all who stood near shuddered. I will not say yes or no at once, said Dain. I must consider what this message means beneath its fair seeming. Take your time to think carefully, said the messenger, but not too long. The time of my own choosing, Dain answered. At present, said the messenger, and rode into the darkness. Our Lord's heart was heavy thereafter. We needed no further warning that the words were both deceit and threat, for we knew that the power returning to Mordor was the same that had betrayed us long ago. The messenger returned twice more, and went away unanswered. The third and last time, he said, would soon come before the year's end, and so at last I was sent by Dain to warn Bilbo that he was being hunted by the enemy, and to learn, if possible, why he desired the ring, the trifle of trinkets. And we also brought our plea to Elrond, for the shadow grows and draws near to the dwarves. We learned that the messengers had come to King Brand in Dale also, and he is afraid. We fear he will submit. War is being prepared on his eastern borders. If we do not answer, the enemy may command his servants to attack both Brand and Dain. It is well that you have come, said Elrond. Today you shall hear all that you need to know to understand the purpose of the enemy. You can do naught but resist, whether there be hope or no, but you are not alone. You will learn that your concern is but a part of the concern of all the Western world. The ring. What shall we do with the ring, the trifle that Sauron desires? That is the dreadful question that we must consider. It is for this purpose that you were called hither.
Called, I say, though I did not summon you, strangers from distant lands.
You have come and met here, and it may seem by chance, yet it is not so. Believe rather that there is a design that we who sit here and no others should now counsel together for the safety of the world. Therefore, at this time, things that have been hidden from all save a few shall be made plain, And first, that all may understand what peril we face, the story of the ring shall be told. And I will begin, though others shall end it. Then all listened as Elrond told of Sauron and the rings of power in a clear voice, of their fashioning and of the second age of the world long past. Some there knew part of the tale, but none knew the whole, and many eyes turned to Elrond in fear and wonder as he spoke of the elven smiths of Eärendil and their friendship with Moria, and of their eagerness for knowledge which Sauron ensnared. At that time he had not yet revealed his true evil form, and they accepted his aid and grew mighty in craft. But he learned all their secrets, and then betrayed them, and in secret forged the one ring in the Fire Mountain to be their master. But Celebrimbor perceived his treachery, and hid the three which he had made. And when war came, all the land was laid waste, and the gate to Moria was shut. Then, in the long years that followed, he hunted the ring. But the tale of those times, though Elrond himself has recorded it in the lore of Rivendell, was not now retold, for it was a long tale, full of great deeds and dreadful events. Yet though Elrond spoke briefly, the sun was high and the morning well spent before he ceased. He spoke of Númenor, of its splendour and downfall, and of the return of the kings of men to Middle-earth, out of the deeps of the sea, out of the great storms. Then came Eärendil the Tall and his mighty sons, Isildur and Anarion, who became great lords, and they founded the northern kingdom of Arnor and the southern kingdom of Gondor above the mouths of Anduin. But Sauron of Mordor attacked them, and they formed the last alliance of Elves and Men, and the hosts of Gil-galad and Elendil gathered in Arnor. At this point, Elrond paused and sighed. "I remember well the banners of their hosts," he said. "It brings to my mind the glory of the elder days, when many princes and captains of great renown gathered together. But not many, nor so fair, since the Thangorodrim were broken, and the elves thought the evil one was defeated forever."
But it was not so, you remember?
Said Frodo, speaking his thought aloud in amazement. "But I thought," he stammered as Elrond turned toward him, "I thought the fall of Gil-galad happened a long time ago." "Indeed it did," answered Elrond gravely. "But my memory reaches even to the elder days. Eärendil was my lord, who was born in Gondolin before its fall, and my mother was Elwing, daughter of Dior, son of Luthien of Doriath. I have seen 3 ages in the west of the world, and many defeats and many fruitless victories. I was the herald of Gil-galad, and marched with him. I was at the battle of Dagorlad before the Black Gate of Mordor, where we had the mastery. With the spear of Gil-galad and the sword of Elendil, Eglos and Narsil, nothing could withstand us. I was at the last combat on the slopes of Orodruin, where Gil-galad died and Elendil fell, and Narsil broke beneath him. But Sauron himself was overthrown, and Isildur cut the ring from his hand with the hilt shard of his father's sword, and took it for his own." At that moment, a stranger, Boromir, interrupted.
"So that is what happened to the ring?" he cried.
"If such a tale is told in the south, it has long been forgotten. I've heard of the great ring of him whom we do not name, but we believed it had perished with his first realm's ruin."
"Isildur took it."
"That is what truly happened. Alas, yes," said Elrond. "Isildur took it against our counsel. It should have been cast then into the fire of Orodruin, where it was forged. But consider the deeds of Isildur. He alone remained of his father's house in that last mortal strife, and of the host of Gil-galad only Círdan and I were left. But Isildur would not listen to our counsel. 'This I will keep as weregild for my father and my brother,' he said. And so whatever we said, he kept it as a treasure. Yet it betrayed him to his death. And so in the north it became known as Isildur's bane, but death may have been better than what else might have befallen him. Only in the north are these tales now told, and few among men remember them. It is no wonder that you have not heard them, Boromir. From the ruin of the Gladden fields where Isildur perished, only 3 escaped ever back over the mountains long ways home. One of these was Otar, his esquire, who bore the shards of Eärendil's sword, and they were given to Valinor, Isildur's heir, who was but a child remaining here in Rivendell. But Narsil was broken, and its light extinguished, and it has not yet been reforged. Did I say that the victory of the last alliance was in vain? Not wholly so, yet it did not achieve its end. Sauron was overthrown, but not utterly destroyed. His ring was lost, but not unmade. The Dark Tower was broken, but its foundations were not removed, for they were wrought with the power of the ring, and while it remained, they too endured. Many elves and many men, and all their noble friends, perished in that war. Anarion was slain, and Isildur was slain, and Gil-galad and Elendil were no more. Never again shall such hosts of elves and men unite. For men multiplied while the firstborn waned, and the 2 kindreds became estranged. And from that day the race of Númenor decayed, and their years lessened. In the north, after the war and the slaughter upon the Gladden fields, the men of the west were scattered, and their city of Anúminas beside Lake Evendim fell into ruin. And the heirs of Valinor removed and dwelt at Fornost upon the high North Downs, and they dared not go thither. The Dunedain of Arnor dwindled, and their foes arose and overthrew them, and their power passed away, leaving only green mounds in the grassy hills. In the south, the realm of Gondor endured long, and for a time its splendor grew, recalling in part the might of Númenor before its fall. Tall towers they built, and strong places and havens of many ships, and the winged crown of their kings was still held in reverence among many peoples. Their chief city was Osgiliath, the citadel of the stars, through the mists of the river's flow. And they built Minas Ithil, the tower of the rising moon, eastward upon the mountain shadows. And to the west, under the feet of the white mountains, they raised Minas Anor, the tower of the setting sun. There the white tree grew in the courts of the king, descended from the seed of the tree that Isildur brought over the deep waters, a seed that came from Erisea, and before that from the uttermost west, in the days when the world was young. But in the swift passing years of Middle-earth, the line of Meneldyl son of Anarion waned, and the tree withered, and the blood of the Númenorians became mingled with lesser men. The watch upon Mordor slept, and dark things crept again into Gorgoroth, and at last the evil things issued forth, and took Minas Ithil, and dwelt there, and built anew a dreadful place which they named Minas Morgul, the Tower of Sorcery. Then Minas Anor was renamed Minas Tirith, the Tower of God, and the 2 cities were ever at war, but Osgiliath, which lay between them, was deserted, and its ruins shadowed. There dwelt still many men of worth, but the lords of Minas Tirith held their ground, though all enemies assailed them, and kept open the ways from the river to the sea. And now I shall tell the tale of the ending of that watch. In the days of Isildur, the ruling ring passed out of knowledge, and the 3 were released from its dominion. But now in these later days they are again in peril, for the one has been found again to our sorrow. Others shall tell how it was found, for I played little part therein. He paused for a while, but at once Boromir rose, tall and proud, before them. "Give me leave, Master Elrond," he said, "first to add a few words concerning Gondor, for verily I come from that land, and it is fitting that all should know what has befallen there. Few, I deem, know of our deeds, and thus they may not judge too surely of our decline, if indeed we are doomed to fall. Men have not believed that the line of Númenor still endures in Gondor, nor that its pride and virtue remain unforgotten.
Wild men of the East still deny our worth, and the terror of Morgul is kept at bay only by our walls.
And so peace and freedom are preserved in the lands behind us, the bulwark of the West. But what if the river's guard should fail? What then? That hour may not be far off. The nameless enemy has arisen again. Smoke rises once more from Eärendil, which we call Mount Doom. The shadow of the dark power grows, and we are beset. Since the enemy returned, our people have been driven from Ithilien, our fair domain east of the river, though we made strong places there. But this very year, in the month of June, sudden war came upon us out of Mordor, and we were swept away. We were outnumbered, for Mordor has allied with the Easterlings and the cruel Haradrim. But it was not by number that we were defeated. There came a power that we had not felt before. Some said they saw it, a great rider all in black, a shadow under the moon. Whenever he appeared, madness fell upon our foes, and even the bravest of our warriors quailed, and men and horses turned to flight. Only our rearguard at the bridge of Osgiliath held their ground, until the structure was cast down behind us. Only 4 escaped by swimming the river, my brother, myself, and 2 others. Yet we still held the western shore of Anduin, and those who fled behind us still speak our names with praise. Many praises, but little help. Few now come from Rohan when we call. In that dreadful hour I set out for Elrond, passing through countless perils. Alone I journeyed for 110 days. But I did not come seeking allies in war, for strength is not in weapons, as men say, but in the wisdom of Elrond. I came to seek counsel and guidance for great need. For on the eve of the sudden assault, a dream came to my brother in troubled sleep, and afterwards it came again to him as a vision, and then once more to me. In a dream I saw the eastern sky grow dark, and thunder rolling. But in the west there was still a light, and out of it I heard a voice, remote yet clear, crying, "Seek for the sword that was broken. In Imladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken, stronger than Morgul's spells. There shall be shown a token that doom is near at hand, for Isildur's bane shall waken, and the halfling forth shall stand." We could not understand these words, and we spoke to our father Denethor, lord of Minas Tirith, who is learned in the lore of Gondor. He said only that Imladris was a name of old that the elves gave to a far northern dale, where Elrond half-elven dwelt, the wisest of all the masters of lore. Therefore my brother, seeing the peril of our time, took the dream to heart and set out for Imladris. But I doubted the vision and deemed the journey dangerous, so I took the road myself. My father was loath to let me go, but I have wandered long in many forgotten ways, seeking the house of Elrond, of which many had heard, yet few could tell where it lay. And here, in the house of Elrond, you will learn many things, said Aragorn, rising. He drew forth the sword that lay before Elrond upon the table.
"It is the sword that was broken," he said. "Who are you then, and what have you to do with Minas Tirith?"
said Boromir, looking with wonder at the lean face of the ranger and his travel-stained cloak. "He is Aragorn's son of Arathorn," said Elrond, "and he is descended through many fathers from Isildur. Eärendil's son of Minas Ithil, he is the chief of the Dunedain of the north, and few are now left of that folk." "Then it belongs to you, and not to me at all," cried Frodo in amazement, springing to his feet, as if he expected the ring to be demanded at once. "It does not belong to either of us," said Aragorn, "but it has been ordained that you should hold it for a while." "Bring forth the ring, Frodo," said Gandalf solemnly. "The hour has come. Show it to Boromir, that he may see the rest of his riddle." Aragorn smiled at him. Then he turned to Boromir. "For my part," he said, "I forgive your doubt. Little do I resemble the figures of Eärendil and Isildur as they stand carven in the halls of Denethor.
I am but the heir of Isildur, not Isildur himself.
I have had a hard life and a long one, and the miles that lie between here and Gondor are but a small part of the many that I have wandered. I have crossed many mountains and many rivers, and trodden the plains even into the far countries of Rhun and Harad, where the stars are strange. But my home, as I have said, is in the north. The heirs of Valinor have kept the house through many generations. Our days have darkened, and we have dwindled, but still the sword has been kept that was broken. And this I will say to you, Boromir, ere I end. We are but a few, and our works are humble. The rangers are wanderers, hunters, but they are also the hunters of the servants of the enemy, for they are found in many places, not in Mordor only. If Gondor has been a mighty tower, we have been its watchmen, standing on the outer borders. There are evils that wander where no walls defend, and bright swords are few. You know little of the lands beyond your bounds. Peace and freedom, do you name them? It is long since the north has known them. Fear has eaten them away. But when the shadow creeps from the barren hills or crawls from dark woods, then the people flee, and there is no safety save in flight. What roads would you walk? What homes would you keep if the Dunedains slept, or were all gone to their graves green with moss? Yet we are no happier than you. The simple folk shun us, and the wanderers call us strange names. I am Strider, to one fat man who lives a day's march from the enemy, a day that would freeze his heart or lay his little town in ruin if he were not guarded ceaselessly. But if simple folk are to be freed from care and fear, simple they will remain, and we must walk in secret. That is our task while the years pass and the grass grows. But now the world is changing again. A new hour comes. Isildur's bane is found. Battle is at hand. A sword shall be reforged. And I will come to Minas Tirith. You say that Isildur's bane has been found, said Boromir. I have seen a shining ring on the halfling's hand. But Isildur perished ere this age of the world began, they say. How do the wise know that this is his ring? And how has it come down through the years until it is brought here in such strange fashion? That shall be told, said Elrond. But not yet, I beg you, master, cried Bilbo. The sun is high, and I feel the need of something to strengthen me. I name no one, said Elrond, smiling. But now I call on you. Come, tell us your tale. And if you have not turned it into verse, you may tell it in plain words. The briefer you are, the sooner you will be refreshed. Very well, said Bilbo. I will do as you bid. But now I shall tell the true story, and if any who are here have heard me before, let them forget and forgive me. He glanced at Glóin. For in those days I wished to claim the treasure for my own, to rid it of the name of the thief that found it. But perhaps now I understand better. However, here is what really happened. To some their present the tale of Bilbo was entirely new, and they listened with amazement as the old hobbit told of his adventure with Gollum in full detail, omitting not even the riddles. He would have told also of his party and his disappearance from the Shire had he been allowed. But Elrond raised his hand. Well told, my friend, he said. But now we know enough that the ring passed to Frodo, your heir. Let him now tell his tale. Then, less willingly than Bilbo, Frodo told all that he had done with the ring since it came to him. Each step of his journey from Hobbiton to the ford of Bruinen was questioned and considered, and all that he could recall concerning the Black Riders was examined.
At last he sat down again. Not bad, said Bilbo to him.
You would make a good storyteller if they would let you alone. I've made a few notes, but we'll go over it all later if I have to write it down. That will be a full chapter of the great tale before you ever came here. Yes, it seems a very long tale, said Frodo, but to me it feels unfinished. I want to know a great deal more, especially about Gandalf. Galdor of the Havens, who was sitting near, leaned forward. You speak for me also, he said, turning to Elrond. The wise may have reasons for believing that the halfling's ring is indeed the great ring that has long been spoken of, though to us it seems beyond belief.
But can we not hear the proofs?
And I would also ask, what of Saruman? He has studied the lore of the rings, yet he is not here. What counsel has he given if he knows of all that we have heard? The questions you ask, Galdor, said Elrond, touch all that is now to be told. They shall not be overlooked. But these matters are for Gandalf to set forth, and he shall be heard last, for that is the place of honour, and he has been the chief agent in these deeds. There are some here, said Gandalf, who will think that the journey of Glóin and the pursuit of Frodo are proof enough that the halfling has indeed found a thing of great worth to the enemy, that it is a ring. But which? The 9 are held by the Nazgul. The 7 are taken or destroyed. Glóin stirred at this, but said nothing. We know the 3. What then does he seek so eagerly? There has been a great waste of time between the river and the mountain, between searching and finding. At last the gap in our knowledge is filled, but it was too late. The enemy was already close behind, nearer than I fear. And some will remember that long ago I dared to pass the doors of the necromancer in Dol Guldur, and secretly explored his ways, and discovered that our fears were true. He was none other than Sauron himself. The ancient enemy returned to power. Others will remember that Saruman dissuaded us from reopening those studies, and long we watched and waited. But at last, when his shadow grew great, Saruman gave the alarm, and the council put forth its strength and drove the evil from Mirkwood. That was in the very year that the ring was found, a strange chance, if chance it was. But we were too late. As Elrond has said, Sauron also had watched us, and long had prepared against us. From afar he directed Mordor through Minas Morgul, where his 9 servants dwelt, until all was ready. Then he gave way before us, but only feigned flight, and soon he returned to the Dark Tower, and openly declared himself. Then the council met for the last time, for now we knew that he sought the One Ring with all his power. We feared that he knew much that we did not, but Saruman would not agree, and he repeated what he had said before, the One had never been found in Middle-earth. And worst of all, said Gandalf, our enemy knew that we had it not, and that it still was lost. Yet he believed that what was lost might still be found. Do not fear, he said. His hope will betray him. Have I not studied this matter? It fell into the great river Anduin long ago, while Sauron slept. It rolled down to the sea, and there it lies until the end. Gandalf fell silent again, and looked eastward to the archway and the distant peaks of the misty mountains, whence the world's peril had so long hidden. He sighed. And that was my fault, he said. I was lulled into complacency by the words of Saruman the Wise. Yet I should have discovered the truth sooner, and our peril would have been lessened. We are all at fault, said Elrond. But for your vigilance the shadow might indeed have fallen upon us long ago.
Yet tell on.
From that time my heart brought me the first twinges of fear, against all the reasons I knew, said Gandalf. I greatly desired to learn what had become of Gollum, and how long he had possessed it. So I set out to find him, guessing that he must have long since left the darkness to seek for his lost treasure. He had done so, but he had fled, and I could not find him. Then, alas, I let the matter rest, keeping watch and waiting, as we often do. Time went on, and I remained watchful, until at last a sudden fear again arose. From whence came that hobbit's ring?
And if my fear proved true, what was to be done with it? I had to decide.
But I spoke of my fear to no one, knowing too well the danger of an untimely whisper if the tidings should go astray. Through all the long wars against the Dark Tower, treachery has ever been our most perilous foe. That was 17 years ago. Soon I noticed that many spies, indeed beasts and birds, were gathering about the Shire, and my fear grew. I called for the aid of the Dunedain,
and they redoubled their watchfulness, and I opened my heart to Aragorn.
"The heir of Isildur and I," said Aragorn, "advised that we should also hunt for Gollum, though it seemed late indeed. And so it befell that the heir of Isildur should labour to repair Isildur's fault. And I went with Gandalf on a long and hopeless search. Then Gandalf told how they had explored all the wild, even to the mountains of Shadow and the fences of Mordor. There we heard rumours of him, and we guessed that he had long dwelt in those dark hills. But we found him not, and at last I despaired. In my despair I thought to test whether the search for Gollum was still needful. The ring itself might reveal whether it was indeed the one. Then came back to me the memory of the council's words, Saruman's law, little heeded at the time.
I heard them echoing clearly in my heart. The 9, the 7, and the 3, he said, each had their proper gems.
The one lacked them. It was smooth and plain, for the maker set upon it no ornament or device, save only the fine engraving of signs which even now might be read. He did not say what those signs were. Who then should know them now?
Only the maker.
And what of Saruman? Yet however great his law, it must have come from somewhere. Whose hand had worn the ring from the hand of Sauron before it was lost? Only Isildur's hand. Thinking thus, I abandoned the chase and rode swiftly to Gondor. In ancient days my commands had been heeded there, for the most part, at the bidding of Saruman. He had long been a guest of the lords of the city. Lord Denethor received me less kindly than of old, and grudgingly granted me leave to search his hoarded scrolls and books. If you seek only ancient lore and records of the city's beginnings, read on, he said. For me the things that were are less dark than those that are yet to come, and those are my concern. But unless you are mightier even than Saruman, who studied here long, you will find little of worth to me, the master of the law of this city. So spoke Denethor, and among the few remaining scrolls in his archives, scarce any could now be read, even by masters of law, for their scripts and tongues had grown dark to later men. Yet, Boromir, I guess that in Minas Tirith there still lies, under whatever guard of Saruman and myself since the kings failed, a scroll written by Isildur's own hand. For though Isildur marched to war in Mordor, some have told the tale. Some remains yet in the north, said Boromir, interrupting. In Gondor all know that he first came to Minas Anor and dwelt there for a time with his nephew Menildil, instructing him before he entrusted him with rule of the South Kingdom. Then he planted there a seedling of the White Tree, according to the memory of my brother. But in that time also he wrote the scroll, said Gandalf, and that, it seems, has not been remembered in Gondor, for the scroll speaks of the ring, and Isildur set down in it these words, Now the great ring shall go to be an heirloom of the North Kingdom, but the records of it shall be left in Gondor, where also dwell the heirs of Eärendil, that the memory of great deeds shall not be lost with the passing of years. And after these words, Isildur described the ring. As he found it, it was hot when I first took it, hot as a ploughshare newly forged, and my hand was scorched, so that I doubt if ever it shall be free of pain. But even as I write, it cools and shrinks a little, though it loses neither beauty nor shape. The markings upon it, which at first were plain and red as fire, now fade and are only barely to be read. It looks like the work of the elven smiths of Eärendil, for they could not have left Mordor unmarked for such delicate craft. But I cannot read the writing. I deem it to be a tongue of the Black Land, for it looks cruel and uncouth.
I know not what evil it says.
But I have copied it here, lest it fade beyond recall. It may be that the ring still remembers the heat of Sauron's hand, that black hand that burned like fire, and so Gil-galad perished. And maybe the gold still grows hot, and the letters show again. But for myself, I will risk no harm to this thing. It is precious to me.
Though I bought it with great pain. When I read this, my puzzle was answered.
Truly, as Isildur guessed, it was a tongue of Mordor and of the servants of the tower. What was written there has long been known. For on the day when Sauron first put on the one, Celebrimbor, who made the three, was aware of him, and from afar heard his words, and so his evil purpose was revealed. I left Denethor at once, but even as I journeyed north, a message came from Lorien that Aragorn had passed that way and was seeking a creature called Gollum. So first I went to meet him and hear his tale. I dare not guess what perils he had faced alone. There is little need to tell of them, said Aragorn. If a man must walk openly in the Black Gate or cross the lifeless flowers of the Morgul Vale, he will find peril enough.
At last I despaired and turned homeward.
Then by good fortune I came suddenly upon what I sought, the marks of soft feet beside a muddy pool. The trail was fresh and swift, and it did not lead to Mordor, but away. I followed it along the dead marshes, and there I found him. He was crouched in a noisome pool, peering out like a thing dark fallen into the slime.
I caught him, Gollum.
He was covered with a foul slime, green and wet.
I fear he will never love me, for he bit me, and I was not gentle.
Little I gained from his mouth but bites and curses. It was the worst part of all my journey to lead him back, watching him day and night, dragging him before me with a halter round his neck, gagged until he grew tame from thirst and hunger. I brought him at last to Mirkwood and delivered him to the elves, as we had agreed.
And I was glad to be rid of him, for he stank.
For my part, I hoped never to see him again, but Gandalf came and he endured long speech with him. Yes, long and weary, said Gandalf, but not without profit. For one thing, his tale differed much from Bilbo's first account, though that meant little, for I had already guessed it. Yet I learned that Gollum's ring had first come out of the great river near the Gladden fields, and I discovered that he had possessed it very long indeed. He had outlived many generations of his small kind. The power of the ring had lengthened his life far beyond their measure, and such a power only the great ring possessed. And if that were not proof enough, Galdor, he went on, there was still another test. On the very ring you have seen, the plain, unadorned one, the letters that Isildur described can still be read if one has the will to hold this golden thing in the fire for a while. I have done so, and this is what I read. Ash nazg durbatuluk, ush nazg gimbatul, ash nazg thrakatuluk, ag burzum ishi krimpatul. The change in the wizard's voice was astonishing. Suddenly it became menacing, filled with power and harsh as stone. It seemed as though a shadow passed over the sun high above, and for a brief moment the hall darkened. All trembled, and the elves stopped their hands. Never before has any voice dared to utter those words in Imladris. Gandalf the Grey, said Elrond, when the shadow had passed, and all could breathe again. And let us hope that no one will speak them here again, answered Gandalf. Yet I do not ask your pardon, Master Elrond, for if that tongue is not soon to be heard in every corner of the West, then we may put aside all doubt of what the wise have declared, the treasure of the enemy, filled with his malice, and much of his ancient power still dwelling within it. Out of the black years the smiths of Eregion heard those words, and knew that they had been betrayed. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. My friends, you should also know that I learned much more from Gollum. He spoke unwillingly, and his tale was confused, but in the end it became clear that he had been to Mordor, and there he had been forced to tell all that he knew. Thus the enemy learned that the one had been found, and that it had long remained in the Shire, and since then his servants have hunted it almost to our very doors. By now he will soon know, perhaps he already knows even as I speak, that we have it here." There was silence for a while, until at last Boromir spoke. "You say that he is a small creature, this Gollum? Small, but full of cunning. What has become of him?"
"Into what dungeon have you cast him?"
"He is in prison, but in no torment worse than his own," said Aragorn.
"He is miserable."
"Without doubt he is in anguish, and the fear of Sauron lies deep in his heart. I am glad, at least, that he is safely kept under the watchful guard of the Elves of Mirkwood. His malice is great, and it gives him a strange power for one so withered and small. He could still do much evil if he were free, and I have little doubt that he was permitted to leave Mordor for some dark purpose. Alas!"
"Alas!" cried Legolas, and the fair face of the elf grew full of sorrow.
"The tidings that I was sent to bring are already told. They are not good, but only here have I learned how dreadful they are. Smeagol, who is now called Gollum, has escaped." "Escaped?" cried Aragorn. "That is evil news indeed."
"I fear we shall all rue it bitterly."
"How could the folk of Thranduil fail in vigilance so grievously?" "It was not for lack of watchfulness," said Legolas, "but perhaps through overkindness. And we fear that the prisoner received help from others, and that more was known of our doings than we wished. We guarded that creature day and night as Gandalf bade us, though it was wearisome. Yet Gandalf had given us hope that he might be cured, and we had not the heart to keep him forever in the dark, where he would sink once more into his old brooding thoughts." "You elves were not so tender with me," said Glóin, and his eyes flashed.
As if memories of old wrongs suffered in elven halls stirred again. "Come, come,"
said Gandalf. "Do not interrupt, my good Glóin. That was a sad misunderstanding and long ago. If all grievances between elves and dwarves are to be raked up here, we may as well leave the council unfinished." Glóin rose and bowed, and Legolas went on. "In fair weather we would take Gollum into the woods, and there was a tall tree, standing alone far from the others, which he loved to climb. Often we let him climb as high as he pleased, till he was satisfied with the free wind. But we always set guards at the foot of the tree. One day he refused to come down, and the guards would not climb after him, for he had learned tricks of clinging to branches with both hands and feet. So they waited long beneath the tree into the night. It was a summer night, but dark and moonless, and the orcs came upon us unawares.
At last we drove them off. They were many and fierce, but in the forest they were clumsy.
When the battle ended, we found that Gollum was gone, and the guards were slain or taken. Plainly, the attack had been made to rescue him, and he knew of it beforehand. How it was contrived we cannot tell, but Gollum is cunning, and the enemy has many spies. The creatures of darkness that were driven away in the year of the dragon's fall have returned in greater number, and Mirkwood has again become a haunt of evil, save only our realm is still protected. We failed to recapture Gollum. We followed his trail through many orcs deep into the wood toward the south, but it was lost, and we dared not pursue farther, for we had come too near Dol Guldur, and that place is still evil. We did not go that way." Well, he has escaped," said Gandalf. "We have no time to hunt for him. He must do what he will do. Yet he may play a part that neither he nor Sauron has foreseen. And now I will answer Goldor's question. What of Saruman? What counsel did he give us in this hour of need? I must tell the tale fully, for only Elrond has heard it, and but briefly. Yet in it lies all that we must deal with. It is the last chapter in the history of the Ring as it has come to me. At the end of June I was in the Shire, but a shadow of unease lay heavy on my heart. I rode southward to the borders of that little land, for I had a foreboding of some danger still unseen but drawing near. Tidings came to me of war and defeat in Gondor, and when I heard of the Black Riders, my heart was shaken. But I found nothing, save a few fugitives from the south who spoke little, but it seemed to me that they fled from a terror they dared not name. Then I turned east and north and rode along the Greenway, and not far from Bree I met a traveller sitting beside the road, gazing at his horse. It was Radagast the Brown, who once dwelt at Rosgobel, near the borders of Mirkwood. He is one of my order, but I had not seen him for many years. Gandalf, he cried, I was seeking you, but I am a stranger in these parts. All I knew was that you might be found in a wild region called the Shire. Your information is correct, I said, but do not speak so if you meet any of the inhabitants. You are near its borders now.
What do you want with me?
It must be urgent indeed, for you are no great traveller, unless driven by need. I come on urgent business, he said. My news is terrible. Then he looked about him, as if afraid that the hedges might have ears.
Nazgul, he whispered.
The 9 have come forth again. They have crossed the river secretly and are moving westward. They wear black robes and ride black horses. Then I knew what it was that I had feared, though I did not know its shape. The enemy must have some great need or purpose, said Radagast, but I cannot guess what he seeks in these desolate lands. What do you mean? I asked. I have heard, he said, that wherever they go, the riders ask after a land called the Shire. The Shire, I said, but my heart sank, for even the wise fear to face the 9 when they are gathered under their felled chieftain. He was once a great king and a sorcerer, and now he is a terror beyond imagining. Who told you this, and who sent you? I asked. Saruman the White, answered Radagast, and he said that if you feel the need, he will help, but you must seek his aid at once, or it will be too late. That message gave me hope, for Saruman the White is the greatest of our order. True, Radagast is a worthy wizard, a master of shapes and hues, and he has much knowledge of herbs and beasts, and birds are especially his friends. But Saruman has long studied the arts of the enemy, and by that means we have often been able to forestall him. It was through Saruman's devices that we drove him out of Dol Guldur. Perhaps he has now found some weapon that will drive back the 9. I will go to Saruman, I said. Then you must go now, said Radagast, for I have spent much time searching for you and the days are running short. I was bidden to find you before midsummer, and now that time has come.
Even if you set out from this spot, you may not reach him before the 9 discover the land they seek. As for me, I will return at once. And with that, he mounted his horse and rode off swiftly.
Wait, I said. We shall need your help, and the help of all that may be willing. Send out messages to all beasts and birds that are your friends. Tell them to bring any tidings that concern this matter to Saruman and to Gandalf. Send the messages to Orthanc. I will do so, he said, and galloped away as if the 9 were after him. I could not follow him in his wandering. I had ridden far that day, and both I and my horse were weary,
and I needed time to think.
I rested that night at Bree, and at last decided that I had no time to return to the Shire. Never did I make a greater mistake. Yet I wrote a letter to Frodo and trusted it to my friend, the innkeeper, to send it to him. At dawn I rode away, and at last I came to Saruman's dwelling. It lies far to the south at Isengard, at the end of the misty mountains, not far from the gap of Rohan. Boromir can tell you that it is a great bowl-shaped valley, lying between the southern end of the misty mountains and the northern foothills of the White Mountains, his own land. But Isengard is a ring of sheer rocks that encircle the valley like a wall, and in the midst of it stands a tower of stone called Orthanc. It was not made by Saruman, but by the men of Númenor long ago. It is very tall and full of secrets, though it looks like the work of craft. No one can reach it except by passing through the ring of Isengard, and that ring has only one gate. I came to that gate in the late afternoon. It was like a great arch in a wall of rock, and it was strongly guarded. But the gatekeepers were expecting me and told me that Saruman awaited me. I rode under the arch, and the gate closed silently behind me, and suddenly I felt afraid, though I knew no reason for it. But I rode on to the foot of Orthanc and went up the stair to Saruman, and he came to meet me and led me to his high chamber. He wore a ring upon his finger. "So you have come at last, Gandalf," he said, gravely, but his eyes gleamed with a white light, as if a cold laughter were in his heart. "Yes, I have come," I said. "I have come for your aid, Saruman the White." And that title seemed to anger him. "Indeed," he sneered. "For aid?"
Rarely does the wise Gandalf seek aid, a meddler in all matters, great and small, one who always takes a hand, whether it is his affair or not. I looked at him in astonishment.
"But surely," I said, "things are moving which require the union of all our strength." "Possibly," he said, "but that thought comes to you late. The Nine have long been abroad. I know that you have hidden things from me, the head of the council."
What is it that you bring to me now at this late hour?
"What have you been doing? And where have you been wandering? And why do you come hither from your idle haunts in the Shire?" "The Nine are abroad again," I answered. "They have crossed the river. Radagast told me so." "Radagast the Brown," laughed Saruman, and he no longer concealed his scorn.
Radagast the bird tamer? Radagast the simple? Radagast the fool?
Yet he had just the wit to play the part that I set him. "For you have come, and that was all the purpose of my message. And you shall stay here, Gandalf the Grey, and rest from your journeys. For I am Saruman the Wise, Saruman of many colours." Then I looked and saw that his robes, which had seemed white, were not so, but were woven of all colours, and if he moved they shimmered and changed hue, so that the eye was bewildered. "I liked white better," I said. "White," he sneered. "It serves as a beginning. White cloth may be dyed. The white page can be overwritten."
And the white light can be broken. In that case it is no longer white, I said.
"And he that breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom. You need not speak to me as to one of your foolish friends," he said. "I brought you here to give you a choice." He rose and began to declaim, as if he were making a speech long rehearsed. "The elder days are gone, the middle days are passing, the younger days are beginning. The time of the elves is over, but our time is at hand, the world of men which we must rule. But we must have power, power to order all things as we will, for that good which only the wise can see. And listen, Gandalf, my old friend and helper," he said, coming near and speaking now in a softer voice. "I said we, for that can still be the case, if you will join with me. A new power is rising. Against it the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. There is no hope left in elves or dying Numina. This then is one choice before you, before us. We may join with that power. It would be wise, Gandalf. There is hope that way. Its victory is at hand, and there will be rich reward for those that aided it. As the power grows, its friends will grow also, and the wise, such as you and I, may with patience come at last to direct its courses, to control it. We can bide our time, we can keep our thoughts in our hearts, deploring maybe evils done by the way, but approving the high and ultimate purpose, knowledge, rule, order, all the things that we have so far striven in vain to accomplish, hindered rather than helped by our weak or idle friends. There would not be any real change in our designs, only in our means. Saruman, I said, I have heard words like these before, but only from the mouths of emissaries of Mordor, who use them to deceive the foolish. I did not think you had brought me here merely to soil my ears. He looked at me for a long while and paused to think. So, he said, I see that this wise course has not yet persuaded you. Not yet? Have you found no better plan? He stepped forward and laid his long hand upon my arm.
And why not, Gandalf?
He whispered. Why not? The ruling ring. If we could but command it, then power would pass to us. That is the very reason I brought you here. For I am concerned with my work, and I believe you know well where its true worth lies. Is it not so?
What has brought the Nine to the Shire, and what is your business there? As he spoke, a greed he could not conceal flashed in his eyes. Saruman, I said, stepping away from him. At any one time, only one hand can wear the one, and you know that well enough.
So speak not of we. I will not accept, no, nor even tell you tidings of it, for now I know your mind. You are the head of the council, but at last you have unmasked yourself. So it comes to this, either to give it to Sauron or to you.
I will take neither choice.
Have you any other to offer? Then he grew cold and cruel. Yes, he said. I did not expect you to show wisdom, not even in yourself. But I gave you a chance to aid me willingly, and so to be spared much trouble and pain. The third choice is to stay here until the end. Until what end? Until you tell me where the one may be found. I can find means to persuade you, or until it is found despite you, and the ruler has leisure to make things clear, to devise a fitting reward for Gandalf the Grey, troublesome and impertinent. That may not prove one of the bright things, I said. He laughed in my face, for my words were idle, and he knew it. They seized me and shut me alone on the pinnacle of Orthanc, where Saruman was wont to watch the stars. There was no way down, save a narrow stair of many thousand steps, and from there the valley seemed far, far below. I looked upon it and saw that though it had once been green and fair, it was now full of pits and mounds. Wolves and orcs were making their lairs in Isengard, for Saruman had gathered a great force for himself against Sauron, yet his power was not ready. All his laborious preparations sent up a dark reek that lay about Orthanc. I stood alone upon an island in a sea of clouds, with no hope of escape. The days passed grimly. The cold bit through me, and I had but a small chamber to pace in, brooding on the coming of the riders from the north. I was sure the Nine had arisen, though Saruman's words might have been lies. Long before I came to Isengard, I had heard news that could not be mistaken. My heart was full of fear for my friends in the Shire, yet I still had some hope. I hoped Frodo had set out at once, for my letter was urgent, and that he might reach Rivendell before the dreadful hunters began their ride. Yet my fears and my hopes both proved otherwise than I had imagined. For my hope lay with a fat innkeeper of Bree, and my fear with the malice of Sauron. But the fat man had many orders to answer, and Sauron's power was not yet so great as fear made it. Yet in the circle of Isengard, trapped and alone, it was not easy to think of those who fled or despaired in the far Shire. "I saw you," cried Frodo. "You were walking to and fro. The moon shone on your hair." Gandalf stopped in wonder and looked at the hobbit.
"It was only a dream," said Frodo, "but it came suddenly to me. I had almost forgotten it."
"It was a long while ago. I think it was just after I left the Shire." "And so it was," said Gandalf, "as you shall learn. I was in peril then as seldom I have been. Few ever needed me as much as others did at that time, and never have I been so hard bested."
Gandalf the Grey caught like a fly in the web of a treacherous spider.
"But even the wisest of spiders may leave one weak thread in her web." At first I feared that Radagast too had fallen into Saruman's trap. Yet I had seen no sign of treachery in his eyes or voice when we met. Otherwise I would never have gone to Isengard, or I would have gone more warily. Saruman foresaw this, so he hid his purpose and deceived his messenger.
Any attempt to ensnare honest Radagast in a plot would be useless. He sought me in all good faith, and so I was completely taken in.
That was Saruman's one mistake, for Radagast saw no reason not to do as I asked, and he rode straight off to Mirkwood, where he had many old friends. And the eagles of the mountains range far and wide, seeing many things. Wolves gathering, orcs on the move. They saw the 9 riders searching the lands, and they heard tidings of Gollum's escape. So they sent a messenger to bring these tidings to me. Thus, as summer waned, on a night of full moon, Gwaihir the Windlord, swiftest of the great eagles, came to Orthanc unlooked for. He found me standing on the pinnacle. We spoke together, and he bore me away before Saruman was aware. I was far from Isengard before the wolves and orcs poured from the gates in pursuit. How far will you bear me? I asked Gwaihir. Many leagues, he said, but not to the ends of the earth. I was sent to bear tidings, not burdens. Then I must have a steed upon the land, I said, a steed surpassingly swift, for never have I been in such haste. And I will bear you to Edoras, where the Lord of Rohan sits in his halls, he said, for that is not far from here. And I was glad, for the Riddermark of Rohan, the horse lords,
is the land where the noblest steeds are bred in the great vale between the misty mountains and the white mountains. And men of Rohan remain true, do you think?
I asked Gwaihir, for the treachery of Saruman had shaken my trust. They pay tribute of horses, he answered, and many steeds are sent each year to Mordor, so men say, but they have not yet fallen. Yet if Saruman is as you tell me, their doom cannot be far. He set me down in the land of Rohan before dawn.
And now I have made my tale too long.
The rest shall be brief. In Rohan I found evil had already been at work, lies of Saruman, and the king would not listen to my warnings. He gave me a horse and bade me begone, and I chose what pleased me most, though he would not like it. I took the best horse in his land, and I think he was not at all pleased. Quite true, said Gandalf, and one of them may have been born at the dawn of the world. The horses of the Nine could never rival it, a horse tireless and swift as the flowing wind. They call it Shadowfax. By day his coat shines like silver. By night he is like shadow, and he runs unseen beneath the moon.
His hooves strike light as he gallops. Never before has any man ridden him, but I caught him and tamed him.
And he bore me so swiftly that I reached the Shire when Frodo arrived at the Barrow Downs, though I had set out from Rohan only when he left Hobbiton. But fear grew in me as I urged my horse onward. Wherever I went I heard tidings of the riders, and though I gathered news daily, they were always ahead of me. They had divided their forces, I knew that. Some remained on the eastern borders, not far from the Greenway, and others had already entered the Shire. When I came to Hobbiton, Frodo was gone, but I spoke with old Gamgee.
Many words, yet little meaning.
He talked at length about how Bag End would soon have a new master. I can't bear these changes, he said. Not while I'm alive, and it's the worst change of all. The worst change, he kept repeating. Worst is a hard word, I said to him, and I hope you will not live to see it. But at last I gathered from his talk that Frodo had left Hobbiton less than a week before, and that a black rider had come to the hill that very same afternoon. Then in great fear I rode swiftly on. I came to Buckland and found it in confusion, as if a stick had been thrust into an ant hill. I went to the house at Crickhollow and found it broken open and empty, but there was Frodo's cloak lying on the threshold. I despaired for a while and did not even wait to gather more news, else I might have been somewhat comforted. But I rode on following the trail of the Black Riders. It was hard to track them, for it went many ways and I lost it. Yet I felt sure that one or two had ridden toward Bree, and I followed that way, for I thought of what I would say to the innkeeper. They call him Butterbur, I thought. If this delay is his fault, I shall melt all the butter out of him.
I'll roast that foolish old man over a slow fire.
He was plainly expecting something of the kind, for when he saw my face he fell flat on the spot and began to melt away into a puddle. "What did you do to him?" cried Frodo anxiously. "He was very kind to us and did all he could." Gandalf laughed.
"Don't worry," he said.
I neither bit nor barked much. So when I had wrung out of him what news I could, after he had stopped shaking, I was so delighted that I embraced the old fellow. I could not yet guess how things had gone, but I learned that you had been at Bree the night before, and that in the morning you had set out with Strider. Strider,
I cried in joy. "Yes, sir, I fear so, sir," said Butterbur, plainly misunderstanding me.
He got hold of them all, though I did all I could, and they had to go with him. When they were here, they behaved rather queerly. It seemed they were quite willing to go with him. "You fool of a Butterbur!" "Twice, nay, thrice worthy Barliman," I said.
That is the best news I have had since midsummer, worth at least a golden piece,
May your bier be laid under enchantment for 7 years.
I said. Now I can rest a night.
I had forgotten what sleep was like. So I stayed there that night, thinking long on what the riders might be planning. For it seemed that only 2 had come as scouts to Bree, but that night we learned more. At least 5 had come from the west, and they swept through the gate and the streets like a storm wind. The Bree folk still trembled and expected the sky to fall. I rose before dawn and followed after them. I do not know for certain, but I think I saw plainly what had happened. Their captain had stayed secretly south of Bree, while 2 rode through the village, and 4 others went on into the Shire. But when those lost the trail at Bree and Crickhollow, they returned to report to their captain, and thus the road was left unguarded for a while, save by their spies. The captain then sent some galloping eastward through the village, and himself with the rest rode in furious haste along the road. I spurred Shadowfax like the wind toward Weathertop, and I reached it before sunset on the 2nd day after leaving Bree, but they had arrived there before me. They kept their distance, for they felt my wrath, and they dared not face it while the sun still shone. But at night they closed in, and I was besieged on the hilltop, within the old ring of Amon Sul. Indeed, I was forced to draw them there, for such lights and fires had not been seen on Weathertop since the beacons of war were kindled in ancient days. When the sun rose, I escaped and rode northward.
I could hope for no more.
I could not find you, Frodo, in the wild, and it would have been madness to try while the 9 were abroad. So I trusted to Aragorn. Yet I hoped to draw off some of them, and perchance reach Rivendell before you to warn and prepare help. 4 riders pursued me, but after a time they turned back and seemed to ride toward the ford. That helped you much, for only 5, not 9, attacked your camp. At last I reached the ford after long toil, riding up the Horwell and across the Eton moors, then down again northward. I journeyed from Weathertop in nearly 14 days, for I could not ride through the narrow defiles beside the great evil waterfalls, and Shadowfax left me then.
I sent him back to his master.
Yet a great friendship had grown between us, and he will come at my call when I have need. Thus I came to Rivendell only 2 days before the ring, and the tidings of its peril were already here, and proved all too true. And so, Frodo, ends my tale. May Elrond and all forgive me that it is so long. Yet, such a thing has never happened before, that Gandalf should fail to keep an appointment and not come when he promised. But I think that for the bearer of the ring,
a strange event such as this was needed. Then he must be some proud lord indeed, said Aragorn.
And that grieves me more than tidings that Sauron had gained such a servant. When last I was in that land it was not so. Nor is it yet, I would swear, said Boromir. That is a lie of the enemy. I know the men of Rohan. True and valiant they are, our allies still. They dwell yet in the lands we once gave them. The shadow of Mordor lies upon distant lands, said Aragorn. Saruman has fallen under it. Rohan is beset.
Who knows what you would find there if you returned?
At least not this, said Boromir, that they would sell their horses for their lives. They love their horses as they love their own blood, and with good reason, for the horses of the Riddermark come from the fields of the north, far from the shadow, and their stock, like their masters, is descended from the free days of old. Well, said Elrond, now the tale is told from beginning to end. We are all here, and here is the ring, but still we are no nearer to our goal. What shall we do with it? There was silence.
At last Elrond spoke again. That is evil news indeed of Saruman, he said.
For we trusted him and took his counsel. Deep studies of the enemy's arts are perilous, whether for good purpose or ill. Yet such falls and betrayals have happened before, alas. Of all tales that I have heard, the tale of Frodo today is the strangest to me. I know little of hobbits, save for Bilbo, who sits here, and I perceive that he is not so solitary and eccentric as I once deemed him. The world has changed much since last I walked its western roads. We have heard of those who dwell in the Barrow Downs under many names, and of the stories told of the old forest. These things survive now only among wandering folk of the north. There was a time when a squirrel could leap from tree to tree from what is now the Shire to Dunland in the west of Isengard. I have walked in that land, and I have heard many wild and strange tales there. But I had forgotten Bombadil, if indeed that is still the same being who wanders in woods and hills from days of old, and is even older than the old. That, no doubt, is his name. We call him Eärendil Ben-Adar, oldest and fatherless. But he has many other names given by other folk. The dwarves name him Faun, the northern men call him Orald, and there are many other names beside. A strange creature is he, yet it may be well to summon him to our council. "He will not come," said Gandalf. "Could we not send him a message and ask for his help?" asked Eärendil. "It seems that he has a power greater even than that of the ring." "No, we should not do that," said Gandalf. "It would be truer to say that the ring has no power over him.
He is his own master.
But he cannot alter the ring itself, nor break its power over others. And now he has withdrawn into a little land, within bounds that he has set for himself, though none can see them. Perhaps he waits there for a change in the world, and he will not step beyond those borders. But within those borders it seems that nothing can daunt his spirit," said Eärendil. "Why could he not take the ring and keep it there, so that it could never again do harm?" "No," said Gandalf. He would not consent.
He might do so if all the free peoples of the world begged him, but he would not understand the need.
And if he were given the ring, he would soon forget it, or most likely throw it away. Such things have no place in his heart. He would be the least safe guardian of all, and his solitude is answer enough. Yet, in any case, said Glorfindel, to send the ring to him would only delay the evil day. He is far away, and we could not bring it to him without being discovered by spies. And even if that could be done, sooner or later the Lord of the Rings would learn of its hiding place, and he would summon all his power against it. Could Bombadil alone withstand such power?
I think not.
At last, when all else is conquered, Bombadil will fall, last as he was first, and then the night will come. "I know little of Eärendil save the name," said Galdor, "but I think Glorfindel speaks truly. He has not power enough to defy our enemy, unless within the earth there still lies some ancient strength hidden from the world. But we have seen that Sauron can blast and burn even the hills. Some power still remains with us here in Imladris, or with Círdan at the Havens, or in Lórien. Yet is there strength enough in them, or in us, to withstand the enemy when he comes at last, when all else has fallen?" "I have not that strength," said Elrond, "nor have they. Nor can we by any power keep the ring from him for ever," said Glorfindel. "We have but two courses left, to send it over the sea or to destroy it. But Gandalf has shown us that we cannot destroy it by any craft that we here possess," said Elrond. "And those who dwell beyond the sea will not receive it. It belongs to Middle-earth, for good or ill. The task is ours who dwell here still." "Then," said Glorfindel, "let us cast it into the deeps, and let the lies of Saruman be proved true. For even in this council it is clear that his feet have strayed from the path. He knows that the ring cannot be lost for ever, yet he would have us think so, for he longs to possess it himself. Yet there may be truth hidden in his falsehood. It might be safe in the sea." "Not safe for ever," said Gandalf. "There are many things still living in the deeps of the sea, and the lands and seas themselves may change. And it is not our part here to merely think of escape or of the survival of a few men, but of the fate of all the world. We must seek a final end to this menace, even if we have no hope of finding it. Nor should we find the road to the sea so easy, said Galdor. If it seems perilous to send the ring to Eärendil, to attempt flight to the sea now would be filled with the gravest danger. My heart tells me that Sauron will await our going westward when he learns what has been done. And he will learn soon enough. The Nine are horseless now, but that is only a delay before they find new steeds, swifter than before. It would take but a weakening of Gondor for him to launch a great assault down the coasts, and if he should come there, striking at the White Towers and the havens, then the elves may never again find escape from the shadow that will lie long upon Middle-earth. But such a war will be long delayed, said Boromir. You speak of Gondor as if it were failing, but Gondor still stands, and even if it has grown weary, it is yet strong. But its vigilance cannot now drive back the Nine, said Galdor, and he may find other roads that Gondor does not guard. Then, said Eristor, there are but two courses, as Glorfindel has said, to hide the ring forever or to destroy it. But both are beyond our power. Who shall show us the way?
None here can do so, said Elrond gravely.
At least none can foresee what will come if we choose one way or the other. But now it seems clearer to me which path we must take. The westward road is the easier, therefore it must be shunned. It will be watched. The elves have ever fled westward. Therefore we must go eastward, on the hard road, the road that no one has yet trodden. Our hope lies there, if hope it be. To the fire we must send the ring. Silence fell again. Frodo, even while he sat in the fair house, looking out upon the sunlit valley where water murmured and sparkled, felt a dread shadow upon his heart. Boromir stirred, and Frodo looked at him. He was fingering his great horn and frowning. At last he spoke. I do not understand all this, he said.
Saruman is a traitor, but has he not a point of wisdom? Why should we always talk of hiding and destroying?
Why not think that the great ring has come into our hands to serve us in our hour of need? If the Free Lords possessed it, surely they could defeat the enemy. I believe that is what he fears most. The men of Gondor are valiant, and they will never submit. But they may fall. Courage alone is not enough. First, it must have strength and then weapons. Let the ring be your weapon if it has such power as you say.
Use it and turn it to victory.
Alas, no, said Elrond. We cannot use the ruling ring that we now know too well. It belongs to Sauron and was made by him alone, and it is altogether evil. Its power, Boromir, is far too great for any to wield, save those who have already great power of their own. But to them it is more perilous than to any others. Its desire for domination corrupts the will.
Think of Saruman.
If any of the wise should with this ring overthrow the Lord of Mordor, using his own arts, he would then set himself upon Sauron's throne, and another Dark Lord would appear. And that is another reason why the ring must be destroyed, for while it remains in the world, it will be a danger even to the wise. For nothing is evil in the beginning. Even Sauron was not so. I dare not take it to hide it. I will not take it to wield it. Nor I, said Gandalf. Boromir looked at them doubtfully, yet he bowed his head. So be it, he said. Then we must trust to the weapons that we have. And in the last defense, while the wise guard this thing, we will fight on. Maybe the sword that was broken shall stem the tide, if the hand that wields it has inherited not only the blade of his fathers, but their strength as well. Who can tell? Said Aragorn, but the day will come when we shall put it to the test. That day may not be far off, said Boromir. Even if I had not asked for aid, we still have need of it. Yet it is a comfort to know that others will fight with all that they have. Then be comforted, said Elrond, for there are other powers and realms that you know not of, and they are hidden from you. The great river Anduin flows past many shores before it comes to Argonath and the gates of Gondor. It may yet prove useful to us all, said Glóin the dwarf, if all these powers were to unite, and each one's strength be used for a common purpose. The other rings may be less treacherous and could still be used in time of need. We have lost track of the 7 unless Balin has found the last one of them that came from Thror. No word has ever been heard of it since Thror fell in Moria. Indeed, up to now I could have revealed that Balin set out with a hope that he might find that ring. Balin will find no ring in Moria, said Gandalf. Thror gave it to Thrain his son, but Thrain did not pass it on to Thorin. It was taken from Thrain in the dungeons of Dol Guldur.
I came too late, alas, cried Glóin. Then when shall the day of our vengeance come?
But there still remain the 3. What of the 3 rings of the elves? Men say they are mighty. Do the lords of the elves not still possess them? Yet they too were made by the Dark Lord in ancient days.
Are they then of no use?
I see here lords of the elves.
Let them speak.
The elves made no answer. Have you not heard me, Glóin? Said Elrond at last. The 3 were not made by Sauron, nor did he ever touch them. But it is not permitted to speak of them. To speak much of them now only breeds suspicion. They are not idle, but they were not made as weapons of war or conquest. Their power does not lie in such things. Those who made them did not desire strength, domination, or wealth, but understanding, making, and healing to preserve all that is fair. Such were the gifts of those who wrought the 3 among the elves of Middle-earth, though sorrow still abides within them. But all that has been wrought by those who have used the 3 will be laid bare, and their hearts and minds will be revealed to Sauron if he regains the one. If the 3 had never been, it would have been better. That was his purpose. But what will happen, said Glóin, if the ruling ring should be destroyed as you propose? We cannot be sure, said Elrond sadly. Some hope that the 3 rings which Sauron has never touched would then be set free, and their keepers might heal the hurts of the world that he has wrought. But it may well be that when the one is lost, the 3 will fail also, and many fair things will fade and be forgotten. That is my belief. Yet all the elves are willing to accept this, said Glorfindel. If by it the power of Sauron may be broken, and the fear of his dominion be ended forever. Then once again we return to the question of destroying the ring, said Eristor. But we come no nearer to a decision. Have we the strength to reach the fire where it was made? That would be a desperate road. Were it not for Elrond's wisdom, I should deem it madness, despair, or madness, said Gandalf. It is not despair, for despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. We do not. It is wisdom to recognize necessity, though all may seem folly to those who cling to false hope. Let folly be our cloak, a veil before the eyes of the enemy. For he is very wise and weighs all things to a nicety in the scales of his malice. But the only measure that he knows is desire for power, and so he judges all hearts. Into his heart the thought will not enter that any will refuse it, that having the ring we may seek to destroy it.
If we do so, he will be confounded, for a time at least, said Elrond.
The road must be trodden, but it will be very hard, and neither strength nor wisdom will carry us far upon it. This quest may be achieved by the weak with as much hope as by the strong. Yet such is often the course of deeds that move the wheels of the world. Small hands do them because they must, while the eyes of the great are elsewhere. Well said, Master Elrond, said Bilbo suddenly.
Say no more.
It is plain enough what you are hinting at. Bilbo the silly hobbit started this affair, and Bilbo had better finish it, or himself. I was very comfortable here, and getting on with my book. If you want to know, I was just writing an ending for it.
I meant to say, and he lived happily ever after to the end of his days.
It is a good ending, and none the worse for having been used before. Now I shall have to alter it. It does not look like coming true. And anyway, there will evidently have to be several more chapters if I live to write them. It is a frightful nuisance. When ought I to begin? Boromir looked in surprise at Bilbo, but the laughter died on his lips when he saw that all the others regarded the old hobbit with grave respect. Only Glóin smiled, but his smile came from memories long past. "Of course, my dear Bilbo," said Gandalf, "if you had really started this affair, you might be expected to finish it. But you know well enough that starting is too great a claim for any one act, and that it is only a small part of the deeds that make up the glory of any hero.
You need not bow.
However the words are meant, we do not doubt that you have a brave offer hidden beneath your jest. But it is far beyond you, Bilbo. You cannot turn back time. Things have gone too far. If you still need my advice, I should say that your part in the story is ended. Yet there is still hope ahead. Be ready to write its next chapter when they come." Bilbo laughed. "I have never known you to give me pleasant advice before," he said, "and all your unpleasant advice has been good.
I do not know if this is good or bad.
But I do not feel that I have the strength or luck left to deal with the ring. It grows, and I do not. But tell me, what do you mean by they? The messengers who are to be sent with the ring?
Ah, indeed.
And who are they to be? I feel the council has already decided, and all has been arranged. The elves may have their own high speech, and the dwarves may endure great weariness, but I am only an old hobbit, and I have missed my luncheon."
Cannot you think of some names now?
"Or postpone it till after dinner?" No one answered. The noon bell rang.
Still no one spoke.
Frodo glanced at all the faces, but they were not turned to him. All the council sat silent with downcast eyes, as if in deep thought. A great dread filled his heart, as though he were waiting for some announcement of doom that he had long foreseen, and feared desperately would not be spoken. Desire surged in him to remain quietly with Bilbo in Rivendell. At last, with an effort that seemed to rend his heart, he spoke, amazed to hear his own voice, as if some other person had spoken through him. "I will take the ring," he said, "though I do not know the way." Elrond raised his eyes and looked at him, and Frodo felt his heart pierced by the sudden keenness of that gaze. "If I understand aright all that I have heard," he said, "I think that this task is appointed for you, Frodo."
And that if you do not find a way, then no one will.
"This is the hour of the Shire folk when they arise from their quiet fields to shake the towers and councils of the great. Who of all the wise could have foreseen it? Or if they are wise, why should they expect to know it until the hour has struck? But it is a heavy burden, so heavy that none could lay it on another.
I cannot take it from you.
But if you take it freely, then I say your choice is right. And though all the mighty of old, Hador and Húrin and Túrin and Beren himself, were assembled together, your place should be among them." "But surely you're not sending him off alone, Master," cried Sam, unable to contain himself any longer, and he sprang up from the corner where he had been quietly sitting on the floor. "Certainly not," said Elrond, turning toward him with a smile. "You at least shall go with him. It is hardly possible to separate you from him, even when he is summoned to a secret council and you are not." Sam sat down, blushing, and muttered, "A fine pickle we've landed ourselves in, Mr. Frodo.